A room full of Catholic young adults. Most of them are leaders. And I just want you just to share to them. What do you see happening in the church?
And then Matt was one of the first guys I led worship with at the Passion Conference. We're doing like one of the sessions, and somehow in the conversation he says he's Catholic. I'm like, what? You know? You? He goes, I know. His grace is enough. Yeah, exactly. You know? And you don't even believe that. You know? Like, no, but I just had so many questions. And he so graciously answered. And Audrey was the same way, where, and you know what I loved about it is, and it happened again a few months ago when I was in Rome with the Pope, and Matt Maher was with me, and the Pope started to share with this group of pastors I was with the problems he saw in the Catholic Church. And I was like, what? You know, him just confessing his concern, like that Jesus Christ is not at the center of things. He says the institution is at the center of things, and I'm trying to get Jesus and his lordship back as central where it ought to be. And I'm like, what? You know? And as he began to confess things that, you know, and that's what Audrey and Matt were doing, and they'd heard me confess all my frustrations at the evangelical church and go, gosh. And it was such a great starting point, because it was almost like there were these sides that thought, oh, I thought you were oblivious to these problems in the church. And they're like, well, we thought you guys were oblivious to that. And the more you talk, the more you realize we have these concerns. And it seems like what the growing concern is on both sides is, like, for me, people who attend services, evangelical services, let's say, people that go to these gatherings, that many, many, many of them, and I don't say this out of judgment, it breaks my heart, it scares me. I believe many of them do not know Jesus. My biggest concern is when I talk to people who call themselves Christians. They may love one thing, you know, they may love Passion, they may love Hillsong worship, they may love John Piper, they may love whoever it may be, but like, I don't hear that type of language, like they are in love with Jesus. And my fear is at the end, like Matthew 7 says, many are going to come to me and say, hey, didn't I do this? Didn't I do this? Didn't I do this? And he's going to say, depart from me, I never knew you. That's my fear. It's like, I don't see that look in your eyes that tells me you love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. I'm not judging, I'm just scared. You know, there's a concern in the Catholic Church. My heart is not for Catholics or for evangelicals or Baptists or whatever. My heart is for people. Like, I want to know that you know him. There's a crisis in these two camps, right? It's not a evangelical problem. It's not a, you know, Catholic problem. It's just a problem, right? And then there are those times when you meet people, you talk about Jesus, you talk about the scriptures, and they just come alive. And then you find out later, wait, you're Catholic? you know, right?
Of Tyler, Joseph E. Strickland praised Protestant pastor Francis Chan for his reflections on the truth of Holy Communion. In a sermon posted online last week by sermonindex.net, Pastor Francis Chan said, for the first 1,500 years of church history, every Christian believed in the doctrine of transubstantiation. The video went viral on social media. Bishop Strickland said on Twitter, even though Francis Chan is not Catholic, he shares an amazing and beautiful reflection on the meaning of the Catholic Mass and the real presence of the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist. We should realize that every Mass joins us with heaven.
What I did was I began studying the ancient church. Okay, what happened when Jesus left? And how did they celebrate the Lord's Supper? They devoted themselves to it. I lift up the scriptures high above everything. I think you guys have seen that, and my life has shown that. But at the same time, there was something about the early church practices where you have to at least consider. You know, it's like I respect Justin, I respect Rob, and if they say, hey, we've been studying the scriptures and we want you to look at something, I respect them enough to go, yeah, let me look. So in the same way, I'm looking at the early church fathers and going, what did they all agree on? How did they discern the body? What did it mean to them? And I found some really cool things that really helped me understand the body. When they talked about discerning the body or coming together, you see in 1 Corinthians 11, verse 17, he says, in the following instructions, I do not commend you, because when you come together, it is not for the better, but for the worse. For in the first place, when you come together as a church, I hear that there are divisions among you. Okay, he says, when you come together as the church, the ecclesia, the gathering, the early church saw when we get together, there's something special that happens. No, there was a special thing about communion, because God fills his temple in a very special way when the believers are united, and you see that all through the New Testament, right? And as we pursue that and get serious, however you take the body and blood, it's like, wow, we all know there should be this incredible honor to it. And just go, I want to recognize the body and the blood of the Lord. Best I understand Scripture, best I understand everything, and know that I'm truly partaking of the body and blood of Christ somehow, in some real way. I didn't know that for the first 1,500 years of church history, everyone saw it as the literal body and blood of Christ. And it wasn't until 500 years ago that someone popularized a thought that it's just a symbol and nothing more. I say that because the church is more divided than any time in history. What does this book tell us clearly? That he does not want any divisions in his church. And for 1,000 years, there was just one church. Did you know that? We're so used to growing up in a time when literally there are over 30,000 Christian denominations right now. But for the first 1,000 years, there was just one. What was interesting is communion was at the center of the room every time they gathered. There was something about taking communion out of the center of the church. And it's like, God, man, I want to give myself to this. I want your body and blood to be at the center of our gatherings, the reason why we gather. I want to devote myself to this like they did. God, please surround me with a group of people that want the same thing. Where I want to I get excited to join with the body, and now we're partaking. I'm eating of the flesh and blood of Christ. There was something intimate about however you take it. There's something about Christ wanted this picture for sure of, man, you're eating me like I'm in you. I become a part of you. There's no separation between me and you. You and I can become perfectly one, just as the Father and I are one. And then you and the body and these believers can become perfectly one, because now you and I have the same bloodline. It's not about, that's why these racial divisions and everything else is so ugly. We're of the same bloodline. He died to make us one. So we're all taking of this body, and God looks down and we're saying, look, this is the greatest thing to us. This is the biggest thing to us. Francis might have some theology that's a little different from mine. Remington might have some theology that's different from mine. Isaiah might have some theology. It's like we can talk about that stuff, but we all agree. Oh my gosh, we're brothers. We're brothers. We've got the same blood. Jesus poured out his blood for us. Man, and we're taking of that body and blood, and we're joining with the angels, and we're joining with the apostles. We're joining Christ himself as we take of this. Oh my gosh, I'm a part of this heavenly dwelling. We're a part of this big temple. That's what it means when you recognize the body and the blood of God. And man, what if that was at the center of every Christian gathering in America? I think we'd start seeing the divisions slowly disappear and people start coming together again.